You are taking a live look over Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv right now. It is currently 8 a.m. there as reports of explosions that have gone off there and in the city of Kharkiv. We are starting tonight with that breaking news. NATO officials say a Russian attack on Ukraine is now underway. Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 10 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan. This coming just minutes after Vladimir Putin announced special military operations in eastern Ukraine. In a televised address this morning in Russia, Putin warned that if other countries attempt to interfere, Russia will respond with, quote, consequences they have never seen, unquote. Meantime, President Joe Biden is reacting on Twitter tonight, saying, quote, Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring. He went on to say the world will hold Russia accountable. Meantime, tonight, Ukraine says a full-scale invasion by Russia is now underway. CBS News correspondent Deborah Alfarone is at the White House tonight with the breaking developments.
Russian President Vladimir Putin announced in a televised address he has ordered a military operation in eastern Ukraine. He said there's no goal to occupy Russia's neighbor, but he warned if other countries attempt to interfere, there will be consequences they have never seen.
That sounded like a fighter jet overhead.
CBS News correspondent Charlie D'Agata is in Kyiv, one of two eastern Ukrainian cities where explosions were heard overnight. Smoke was seen rising in Kharkiv. A 30-day state of emergency went into effect Tuesday night in Ukraine. Military reservists were called up.
Результат – тишина.
Ukraine's president appealed for peace in an emotional late-night address and said he had tried to call Putin, but the result was silence. Police and security officers were sent to areas of eastern Ukraine that may be targeted. The UN Security Council gathered again Wednesday night for an emergency meeting.
The United States and our allies and partners will continue to respond to Russia's actions with unity, with clarity, and with conviction.
Satellite images show many Russian troops are within 10 miles of the Ukrainian border. Up to 190,000 of them are deployed, most in attack positions. The U.S. imposed more sanctions. There are options left now that Russia has announced a military operation. But the White House says it's important not to target certain sectors, which may end up hurting Americans.
What we're trying to minimize is what impact there's going to be on the United States and global markets in a lot of ways.
Putin also said he's intending to protect citizens. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
3 to begin with. That sounded like a fighter jet overhead.
Well, during a CBS special report when correspondent Charlie D'Agata was reporting, fighter jets flew past coming into the city of Kyiv. He heard 5 loud explosions, 3 to begin with, followed by 2 more. Now, this happened at around 7:15 p.m. our time and 5:15 a.m. time their time. We want to take a moment now to break down some of the events leading up to these attacks. The tension started to rise at the beginning of December as Russian troops started to build up on the Russia-Ukraine border as a sign that Russia could invade. Now, repeatedly, Putin denied his intentions of invading Ukraine. NATO allies, including the U.S., started deploying military troops to countries outside of Ukraine in the scenario that Russia did move into the Ukraine across the border. Now, since yesterday, Russia violated international law by sending troops into what Putin classified as 2 independent territories. President Biden also created tough sanctions on Russia and cutting off their government from Western finance. At this point yesterday, 150,000 Russian troops had gathered at the border.
We're implementing full blocking sanctions on 2 large Russian financial institutions. We've cut off Russia's government from Western financing.
Taking a closer look at those sanctions imposed yesterday, not just by President Biden, but by other countries in the European Union as well. Germany announced it will now halt the $11 billion Nord Stream 2 pipeline that would have moved natural gas from Russia to Germany. To further bolster NATO's eastern flank, President Biden says he has authorized additional movements of U.S. forces and equipment to Baltic allies. President Biden announcing tonight on Twitter that he will be meeting with leaders of the G7 and allies to impose what he is calling severe sanctions on Russia. Meantime, members of Washington's congressional delegation are reacting to the attack on Ukraine tonight. Washington Senator Patty Murray tweeted, "The Ukrainian people are being plunged into a deadly and devastating war because of the cruel ambition of one dictator. This conflict is totally fabricated, but its human toll will be very real," she continues. "The democracies of the world must stand united with Ukraine and hold Putin accountable." Representative Dan Newhouse, who represents the state's 4th district, also took to Twitter tonight, writing, "I stand with the people of Ukraine as they defend themselves against Putin's relentless aggression. President Biden must answer the call to protect our freedoms by standing up to Putin, immediately leveling severe sanctions against Russia and standing with our NATO allies." Well, this is a rapidly developing situation, and our team is working around the clock to get you the very latest. So make sure to watch Up with KREM starting at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning for the latest developments out of Ukraine. Turning to more top stories tonight, the trial for the Spokane man accused of murdering his ex-wife in August in 2020 began today.
What went through your mind when the texts to Ms. Schaefer stopped?
There was obviously something was wrong.
Spokane police believe that Nathan Beal right there shot his ex-wife Mary when she went to his home in Browns Addition to pick up their 2 children. Prosecutors say the evidence presented in court will prove that Beal is guilty of Mary's death, while the defense asked the jury to pay attention to what isn't said in court. Coming up in just 5 minutes, we'll share more of the victim's boyfriend's testimony, along with Beal's neighbor who heard the gunshots and Beal's then-girlfriend. Washington State University is evaluating the public health status within their campuses to consider the future of their indoor mask requirement. The university is considering its plans in partnership with other public universities across the state. Leaders from public institutions statewide will also meet to discuss face mask policies in the coming weeks. Now, this comes after Governor Jay Inslee announced last week that he is ending the state's indoor mask mandate for most people on March 21st. Kootenai County Sheriff Robert Norris says the city of Hayden needs to invest in more deputies. He brought those concerns to a town hall meeting tonight and said people and property there are at risk. KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk reports from North Idaho tonight.
Sheriff Robert Norris made it clear the current law enforcement situation in Hayden is not sustainable. Right now there's only 3 full-time deputies assigned to the city, roughly 1 per shift. Norris says not only does that put citizens at risk, but also deputies themselves. When there's a serious emergency in Hayden, Idaho, Kootenai County deputies get pulled in from all corners of the county to assist. That was the case February 6th when a man barricaded himself inside a home and lit it on fire. A SWAT standoff lasted for several hours.
This was not a good person that decided to come live in the city of Hayden.
More people are moving to Hayden, and that's resulted in more 911 calls for service.
Truly called to call. I remember there was a whole month I didn't even make a traffic stop. I was so busy just going call to call.
Deputy Tanner Cox is one of just 3 full-time deputies assigned to Hayden, and the only one during his shift. Most days he doesn't have much time to follow up on shoplifting cases or patrol for DUIs. Plus, backup is not always that close by.
I have to wait for a county deputy to come, which could be coming from State Line, Athol, Worley, or even Harrison. So it could be a good anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes.
Sheriff Robert Norris says the city of Hayden spends just 6% of its budget on law enforcement. Other towns like Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene spend anywhere from 20 to 40%. Hayden has roughly 1 deputy for every 5,000 residents.
I mean, we've created an unsafe situation, not only for those of us that live here, but those that are protecting us.
Those facts were presented at tonight's town hall. Sheriff Norris believes the city needs to invest at least $1.8 million to have 24 full-time deputies. Residents have failed to pass 2 public safety levies in recent years.
I think we're doing a better job of getting out and educating the public on how bad the city of Hayden truly has it. And how much better their law enforcement services could be if they were to allocate the funds for it.
In Hayden, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
All right, let's take a quick break from the headlines to talk weather because we saw frigid temperatures once again today. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick once again in the Outdoor Weather Center tonight. And Thomas, at least it looks a little bit warmer tonight compared to last night, right?
Yeah, that little number at the bottom right corner of your screen is quite a bit better than it was last night. 18 versus 9. 24 hours later. Should not be as cold or as windy for tonight. However, we are tracking some very light snowfall. Not seeing anything yet here from our South Hill studios, but radar picking up on some very light or even flurry activity from northern Spokane County, so from Mount Spokane towards Deer Park, and it is drifting southward towards the northern side of town. So we'll be keeping an eye on some of the traffic cameras, see if they pick up on any very light snow. These darker blue shades, slightly darker blue shades out towards central Washington, also indicating that there might be some fairly light but steady snowfall in some parts, really between Grand Coulee out towards Davenport and down towards Moses Lake. Have not seen much in terms of accumulations on any of those cameras either. But nonetheless, we'll be tracking that from about now to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Very light stuff, should be less than an inch in most areas. From there on out, it should actually be an upward trend in terms of our temperatures. We're back into the upper 20s for tomorrow, but we'll show you when we're back above freezing in my full forecast.
Looking forward to those days, Thomas. Thank you very much. And that was your KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where you get more news in less time. We are back in just 90 seconds.